Hello, myself Sunil Nair, and till now basically we have discussed about how basically the each and every this is basically discussion ongoing. Here basically we are discussing about some topic basically, and in this topic basically we have discussed that till now basically how the Earth planet basically has created, and this discussion basically is going between two people basically. That is one is the World Bank person, and one is basically the one Sunil R Nair basically, who is basically searching for job and basically is not getting the job. So that basically World Bank basically person just taken as an example, but in real basically there is no World Bank basically connected with me. So like this basically uh, the things basically are basically we are discussing. Uh, each and every characters basically of the languages basically they are converted into the planets. Each and every characters of the language basically are basically converted into the language into the planets, into the galaxy, and each and everything basically are connected with the satellites. Each character basically contains a set of crores of planets, basically more than 100 crores of planets. So this is one situation basically. Few people basically say that we have basically created set of words basically or set of symbols basically, and in this symbol basically we have placed our entire creation. For example, a few basically language people basically say that we actually have created few symbols basically in the universe basically. In that symbol only basically we put our each and every creation, and that symbol basically we do the puja also basically. So few Malayalis people say that basically we have created this symbol in universe. Gujarati says basically we have created this symbol in universe. So like this, each and every people basically say that we have created this symbol in universe basically. So that basically symbol basically contains each and everything basically education level part, each and everything basically part. So one person basically asked the question: this 20% is global warming basically, which is generated, that basically is not creating in the universe basically. Then they told that basically it might not, it basically might possible that basically they might not be facing this problem basically. Otherwise they might not have created the Earth planet. One person literally told this as an answer basically, that basically it might not be possible that they might have uh, they might not have basically thought that basically this is a problem in universe basically, because it's a problem of Earth planet no, basically. Then basically one person told that basically, but it's created from the universe, right? Basically, sorry, it's created from the Earth planet. Then basically how basically it has not connected to the error in the universe basically. Then he told that basically universe basically is a big place basically. There basically tiny energies, small nano energy basically doesn't might not be getting matter basically. It might possible that the temperature of the universe basically might not getting effect due to that basically nano energy basically. This basically person basically given the answer. Even basically 100 crores of planet basically is inside the one symbol basically. Then basically then also basically the energy is basically not temperature is not getting effect. Then basically this tiny energy basically that are the global warming issue basically, it might not be getting effect. It's basically affecting the Earth planet basically. The human basically are getting effect. The human bodies are basically getting effect, and it might possible that basically few people says that basically there is no there is basically one uh, country, sorry, the one state basically, one city museum basically, museum Cherrapunji basically, one city basically. Just a minute. Cherrapunji basically is one city that is in Meghalaya. That basically everybody knows that basically that city basically contains 365 days rain. Then they told that basically that means you want to say that Cherrapunji is so polluted basically. Then basically one scientist and the one expert basically of the NASA and ISRO basically they told that basically that basically museum basically that town basically the Cherrapunji town basically is basically doing some experiment basically. The experiment is like this. The experiment is They are basically collecting the each and every global warming data basically. Global warming data basically, few people says that basically it can be solved from the rain, but that will merge into the land basically. So what basically that is going to generate in future, that basically also we have to discuss. So he told that basically, do you know basically each and every basically states global warming data basically, that basically are dumped in the Chirapunji city town basically, from the pipeline basically. Then he told that for example, I will take one example. They one person told that basically the Rajasthan basically, uh, the near basically state, near state like Assam, Bhutan. These all basically states are near state basically. Bangladesh basically totally different. Bhutan state is there, like this. Assam is there. So these all are basically their pollution basically. There also basically global warming might be there, no, basically. It's not like that the global warming might not be there basically. There also creation has happened. They are also using the education sector basically. Then one person told that basically it might possible that 99% basically, he told that basically 99% basically the experiment will be like this basically, that Assam states global warming data basically. Global warming means it's given as a global warming, but in real basically, which energy basically are treated as a pollution data basically. That basically is also basically one question basically. Pollution data basically. Who says that basically this is the pollution data? So this basically also is one of the topic basically. We will discuss this topic also. So the 19th topic will be pollution data, which basically data you say as a pollution data basically. Which basically city, which data basically is treated as a pollution data basically, that we will discuss in 19 number topic basically. This is basically the 15 number topic ongoing basically. So one person told that basically 99% I feel that basically the Assam basically global warming data, that is basically the pollution data basically, are basically dumped to the Meghalaya American, I think basically. And there basically they say that basically we basically are facing lots of problem basically. Then suddenly actually what happened? Rainfall. They basically was actually facing the problem. Suddenly actually this basically is called as a nature basically. Nature basically takes care of each and every city basically. If you are basically not playing with the nature basically. So always remember this word basically. If you are not playing with the nature, then nature basically always helps you. So like this basically they told that basically in Meghalaya basically the rain suddenly fall long before basically. Then they told that basically after rain basically the pollution basically which was coming from the Assam and the Bhutan basically that basically pollution is not there basically. Then they basically thought that basically the rain basically if let them basically send the data basically, but we will basically do the artificial rain and artificial rain and like this basically they told that basically they had dumped a few trees basically there. So due to that tree basically the temperature is always like this, and basically whenever the pollution data basically comes, pollution data is what actually that we are going to discuss. That data, pollution data basically, which is given name as a global warming data, that whenever data is come, that time basically the rain falls. So they basically literally had basically have lots of trees like this basically. They told that basically here 365 days basically rain basically falls like this basically. Here basically also there is no pollution basically, pollution data basically. How basically pollution how basically this data, which data is created as a pollution basically, and which data basically merge with the India basically environment, and which actually creates the pollution basically. And pollution means it creates disturbance basically. So what is that basically? That also we are going to discuss. So like this, he told that basically like this basically it might be the, then he told that basically this might be one of the experiment basically. If this experiment basically gets success, then basically we can experiment this more basically. Then he told that basically, is there any issue basically which might come basically? Then he told that it possible basically is there basically it might basically generate to some issue, or basically the earthquake basically also might come, the earthquake energy basically. Then basically he told that in Meghalaya basically this is not a development city, right? Then basically we can't develop anything in Meghalaya. Then he told that basically yes, it might be possible. Basically, we can't develop anything in Meghalaya because if we do the development, basically, then only basically you can see the exact effect. Basically, whether it is getting effect anything in the development or not. Development means the human need creation basically directly basically human need creation basically, that you can say. Then he told that basically let us basically develop this few data here basically. For example, few vegetables let we develop here, few buildings basically like 100 200 buildings basically. Let's see basically anything effects or to the effects to the entire India or not basically. He directly told that basically entire India basically is going to get effect or not. Then basically he told that it might be risky basically if we do that basically, because it is going to directly going to affect to the entire India basically, right? Because if you do any changes in the any state basically, it's directly going to affect to the entire India country, that also within a second basically. So that's why basically it's very, and that's also basically it convert to the earthquakes also basically. And if the earthquake basically start basically, then basically it's very difficult to stop also, because earthquake will to equal to stable energy basically. Stable energy converts into the unstable energy, and to do the unstable to stable basically takes time basically. So that basically required satellites helps, and the satellites are very costly basically. Satellite basically are very costly basically. So we have to hire some satellite group basically. They, I don't know basically how much money basically they takes to do the stability of this particular city basically. So basically instead of that basically they might take the 100 buildings per price only basically. They will take the 100 building price basically just to do that stable city basically, because that much costly basically the satellite groups are. 100 building means you can just imagine basically how much cost basically. It might be the cost of 3 4 states basically, tax amount which the government, which the public pays. It might be the costing of 3 to 4 states basically. Then basically it's not basically so easy basically. So everywhere basically we have to think basically, we have to think about the monetary wise, we have to think. So that's why basically the certain level of plans basically are required basically. Without plan basically you can't do, you can't create a single building also basically in the India basically. So that basically is the thing basically. So in this basically the Earth planet basically we are creating which type of data, that basically certain groups basically might be 100% in. For example, assume that Delhi's state is there, right? Delhi state basically is creating which characters basically. It might be creating numbers. It might be creating the character is creating the character means in character basically there are 100 crores of planet basically. It might be possible that the Delhi basically is controlled from that number or from character data basically. It might possible because this only NASA and ISRO group basically knows that which character basically and which number basically are controlling which state basically. That basically even basically the Bangalore city basically and the Karnataka state basically is getting controlled by which number and which character basically and which symbol basically. It might be possible that it might be controlled by the symbol data basically, and in symbol basically more than 100 crore planets are basically there. So it might possible that that might be getting controlled by the that particular symbol, and symbol basically contains the set of satellites basically, and satellites connection basically are chained. That basically tells that it's a magnetic effect. That's a magnetic effect basically. That's very dangerous basically. That's why basically few people says that anything basically we create in the Earth planet, that is going to affect to the entire universe basically. That's why basically any group basically creates anything basically, they think basically 100 times basically do the plan. Lots of basically plans are done, and then only basically they create, because earth planet to earth planet magnet effect is that's very big. For example, one symbol is there of a, or basically one number is there. In that one number basically it's connected to one state, basically as if that it's connected to Karnataka states. In Karnataka state basically there are how many cities, basically more than basically many cities basically, right? So that Karnataka state is connected with this set of planets basically. So it's a magnetic effect basically. That means, for example, one person told that if any basically earthquake happens in Bangalore city or basically in Karnataka, that means that planet and this planet basically, this Karnataka state basically, some magnetic effect has been changed. That can be basically the planet which basically is connected with the Karnataka. They basically might have done some change, or basically it might possible that Karnataka basically might have in Karnataka basically there might be some many city basically they might have done some changes. That's why basically the people says that basically we have to be very careful if we are creating any object in the earth planet, or basically any object in the any of the states, any of the city basically. That's why basically people basically says that that's why basically the government exists, na? Why the government basically came into the picture. Without government also basically the things is working, na, basically. But why government basically came in? What is the role of government here basically? People say that basically without government also we are basically living our life. We companies basically are there, they are paying the money to us basically. Then basically why the government is basically there? So this is the basically the main reason basically. Government have the data and government has directly connected to the NASA and ISRO group basically. So they are directly connected, and they without their order basically not a single building basically you can prepare. And lots of people say that lots of people basically prepares lots of building. Then basically see basically they are demolished also basically. Use few states basically have demolished the many buildings basically. Many buildings without the, because they were basically prepared without the permission basically. But the permission which basically they have not taken, they basically might not have got the permission. So that might be possible, they might be thinking that basically our data is perfect basically than the government, or they might be thinking some other thing basically. So demolition basically is demolish basically of the that particular buildings basically is basically okay. But to check basically that data basically, actually why he created like that basically, that is also must basically to check basically. It might possible that he might have created some correct, and basically the government might have basically done some wrong. That is also possible basically. That is also possible. So basically every time basically the government checks the demolition, each and every basically demolish area basically, and they basically checks the material also basically. That basically very few states basically do, which they believe that basically it might possible that we are also doing some wrong. That state basically they do basically. So that state is basically perfect state basically you can say, because they say that basically anybody can become basically become the member of the government basically, because we also have selected like that way only basically. We have also basically selected from the government parties on the base of like this only basically. So they basically keeps on each and every open forum basically you can say. Open forum basically you can say anybody can basically give the advice. So here the advice is basically they are creating the something basically without government approval. Then basically the government comes into the picture and they demolish the area, and then basically they, after the few states basically checks also, and many basically less people basically might be knowing that the material basically which is the construction material basically, which for example some house basically are basically 200 300 year old basically. That house basically got demolished, and then basically after demolish basically the uh, that particular material basically was used in a medicine material basically. To create the medicine basically that material was used. So just imagine basically the things because it has connected to 200 years basically of the climate basically change. After 200 years, so since 200 years basically that building basically standing, and that has converted into the medicine basically. That data has converted into the medicine basically. So that's why basically they basically tell us that basically we are using this construction material basically that is 200-year old basically data as a medicine basically. So just see basically the things basically. So in next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this one.